Okay, we'll go live in 1 minute. Yeah. 30 seconds. We'll go live in 30 seconds.
Good evening, everyone. I call to order the regular meeting of the Lakewood City Council on July 13th, 2026 at 7:04 p.m. To connect to the council meeting online, please use one of the following links at lakewoodspeaks.org or lakewoodco.gov/council videos. If you're tuning in tonight online and would like to address the city, you'll be given the opportunity, in person. You'll be given the opportunity at multiple times throughout the evening, depending on why you're here to speak this evening. For those of you that prefer to leave comments online, we do also have lakewoodspeaks.org. That is our online forum for public comments. It is also where you can find additional information about the different topics that we're speaking of tonight, whether it be consent agenda or the items that we're voting on this evening. So if you'd like any additional information, what you'll hear up here tonight is not steeped in a whole lot of details because we had the packet to prepare before this evening, but I would invite you to join us looking at lakewoodspeaks.org for any of the topics that are of interest to you. That will be left open through tonight and until 10 a.m. tomorrow. So public comment can be left on lakewoodspeaks.org for any items that we're speaking on tonight or general public comment through 10 a.m. tomorrow. Will the clerk please start us off by calling the roll?
Councilors Black.
Here.
Cruz, aye.
Here.
Cruz, K.
Here.
Furman.
Here.
LeBure.
Here.
Lowe.
Here.
Nystrom.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Sinks.
Here.
Sharzai.
Here.
Mayor Strom.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. This is the point I would ask if you're able to stand, please join us to do so for a Pledge of Allegiance, and afterwards remain standing for a moment of silent prayer or reflection. All the members of the City Council have the responsibility to comply with the terms of Charter 7.2B and excuse themselves from voting on any matter in which they determine they have a personal, financial, or business interest. The City Council is empowered by Charter 7.2B to agree by unanimous vote, excluding the member at issue, to excuse any member of the council from voting on a matter in which they determine such member has a personal or financial interest. Personal, financial, or business interest. So this evening, before we kick off the voting elements of tonight's regular meeting, we do have a very special occasion tonight. We have members here that have joined us this evening that are serving in a variety of different ways on our boards and commissions. Boards and commissions are basically, it's a way for our residents to be involved in the whatever we want to call it within the city. Lots of different generation of ideas, research of ideas, being sounding boards, maybe making different decisions. I will go through a list of each and every one before we're done. But The reason that that we are bringing this up this evening is to honor the work that is being done by the many residents that we have that are serving in this capacity, and to say thank you for doing that. Also, I would love to, as a part of that, share the light on the work that you guys are doing, because we are always looking for new residents that want to join us to be part of the solution. Making a great city is not just something that happens up here on the dais to your city council, or in this building, or that building, or that building for city staff. It is really all of us working together collectively to come up with solutions, identifying needs, and that's how we figure out the best way to move forward. So for our boards and commission members that are here, I haven't gotten into my formal remarks yet, but I want to say thank you very much for your time and your service. So these dedicated community members help shape the city by digging into challenging topics, working together to find solutions, and thinking outside of the box to advocate or address issues. There are currently 60 volunteers who serve on various boards and commissions across our city. I could not ask for a more dedicated and enthusiastic bunch of volunteers. So tonight we'll take the opportunity not only to thank the volunteers, but to educate our community members that are joining us either this evening or maybe online tomorrow or the days yet to come, to educate community of the role that each of these very important groups plays within our city. So I'll go through the list of all of our boards and commissions that we have. The first, we have Board of Adjustment, and at the end I'll ask for you all to stand, but I won't make you to popcorn up as we go through this. The Board of Adjustment hears and makes decisions on requests by property owners for variances from development regulations and appeals from planning department decisions. The members of the Board of Adjustment are those individuals also appointed to serve as the Planning Commission. The Board of Appeals hears and makes decisions on appeals from any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the Building Code Administrator. The Budget and Audit Board is one that's actually quite unique to Lakewood in that it is the one, it still is actually the one that we have that is a blend of your elected city councils as well as community members. And that serves as our financial oversight committee. The Design Review Commission has the authority to review, approve, or modify certain design review applications with designated areas within the city. The Employee Pension Board oversees a 401A pension plan and a 457B deferred comp plan for city employees and retirees. The Historic Preservation Commission conducts public hearings on applications for landmark designation and makes recommendations to the City Council. The Lakewood Advisory Commission is made up of 4 subcommittees who are charged with being advocates and informed voices for the community to the City Council regarding sustainability, neighborhoods, civic awareness, and diversity. The Noxious Weed Local Advisory Board is an independent entity responsible to the City Council charged with reviewing and approving noxious weed management plans. Planning Commission, I mentioned briefly earlier, conducts public hearings on rezoning and subdivision applications for specific parcels of land in order to make recommendations to the City Council. The Planning Commission is the approval authority for most special use permits and waivers. The Victim Assistance Compensation Board considers requests for compensation from victims of crimes within our city. They do so much within and across our community. While not all of our boards and commission members could be here this evening, it is the middle of July, of course, so it takes, we've got lots of vacations, camping, and you name it going on this evening. But for those of you that were able to join us, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you so much for your service to our community. With that, I will also, let's see, I skipped the part where I'm asking you to stand up. Let's go ahead and do it. For everybody serving, please go ahead and stand up. And everyone else in the room would ask for a round of applause for these amazing people. All right, thank you all. And thank you for your service and your commitment to the city of Lakewood. Once you go home this evening, there will be an email that you receive that is a special token of gratitude from us. So keep an eye on your inbox if you've not checked it and seen it so far. And for those of you that are not here this evening as one of the members of our boards and commissions, or those of you that may be listening online, we are very regularly, if not always, looking for more great volunteers to serve in these capacities around our city. These capacities and actually other capacities, but this is one area that you can get involved. There are currently openings on the Noxious Weed Local Advisory Board, the Lakewood Advisory Commission, and the Historic Preservation Commission, and the Planning Commission. Please consider applying to serve your community on one of these amazing boards or commissions. For more information and to apply, you can visit lakewoodco.gov/get involved. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll do one more round of applause on our way out. All right, and with that, we will go ahead and open up our initial round of public comment. And our initial round of public comment is up to 10 speakers. This does require signing up for public comment prior to this evening's meeting with a cutoff that occurs at 5 p.m. So everybody that is signed up on this list reached out prior to the meeting to get signed up. What I will do is we'll call from this list, and this is the first point of general public comment that will occur this evening. After we get through the ordinance that we are voting on that's up for second hearing or second reading tonight, we will have another round of initial public comments. So anybody that is here to speak on what's not necessarily a voting agendaed issue for the City Council will have the opportunity in that area as well. So for that, what I will do is I will start us off. We'll call name. And please, when I call your name, go ahead and approach up here. This is the lectern where you'll be speaking from. And we'll ask you to start by giving us your name and address, or your name and your ward. And then everybody will get 3 minutes to speak. So the city clerk will start our clock. You'll be able to see that while you're up here and speaking. So we will start with, first I have Mark Valente, then Danielle Viciarelli, and then Aaron Kaufman. So Mark, if you'll go ahead and approach. He's not here. Okay, Danielle. And if you'll kick us off with your name and address, or your name and ward, and we'll get your 3 minutes started.
Okay, my name is Danielle Vecchiarelli, and I live on 862 Harlan Street, which is directly across from the Mulholland property. My husband and I intentionally bought our home in 2017 because we saw this as a neighborhood where we wanted to raise our family. Over the last 8 years, we've built lasting friendships with our neighbors, welcomed our twin daughters, who are now 6 years old, and our dog, and invested countless hours into caring for and improving our home. We take great pride in our neighborhood and are deeply invested in its continued success. Quite literally, the Mulholland Park is an extension of our backyard. We use it almost every day to walk our dog, let our girls ride their bikes, play on the playgrounds, and spend time with our neighbors. Because I have a front row seat to this property, I can confidently say that no matter the time of day, the park is being enjoyed by someone. Families, children, dog owners, and neighbors are constantly using the space, and people consistently do their part to keep it clean, welcoming, and enjoyable. We've also appreciated the recent investments in the playgrounds, which have made an already wonderful community asset even better. I'll be honest, when we first heard there was a proposal to dedicate this property to a single organization's mission, it made us question whether this neighborhood would continue to be the right fit for our family. To be clear, we absolutely support organizations that provide resources to underserved communities. Our daughters are bilingual, and we value living in a diverse neighborhood. Our concern wasn't about who would benefit, it was about permanently dedicating one of the few remaining public properties of this size in the heart of an established neighborhood to a single purpose instead of preserving it as a place that serves the entire community. When the community survey was released and we started talking with our neighbors, we quickly realized we weren't alone. Residents overwhelmingly envision this property remaining community-focused, a place that stays publicly accessible and continues evolving to meet the needs of the neighborhood for generations to come. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. I strongly support the City of Lakewood purchasing and demoing the vacant Mulholland building and preserving this property as public green space. As funding becomes available, I hope the city continues investing in amenities the community has asked for, whether that's expanded recreation opportunities, gathering spaces, or future community facilities. This park is already where a community comes together. Let's preserve that and build on it so future generations can enjoy it just as much as our families do today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Aaron Kaufman, then Kevin, is it Reby? Roby.
I'm gonna move this up. Can you hear me better? Okay, wonderful. Hi, I'm Erin Kaufman. I live at 915 Kendall Street in Ward 2. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Mayor, members of the City Council, what you do is so important for us, so thank you so much. I am here because I believe the former Mulholland Elementary property represents something incredibly rare. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the City of Lakewood to invest in a community that has waited a long time for this type of opportunity. Properties of this size in the heart of an established neighborhood almost never become available. And once this land is sold and developed for another purpose, we'll never have this opportunity again. Decisions like this shape our neighborhoods for generations. If we don't act now, our children and our grandchildren won't get a second chance. As a parent raising 2 young children in Ward 2, I think about what this neighborhood will look like as they grow and what they'll remember growing up in a community like this is. Will they remember parks, gathering places, or will we look back and wonder why we let such a rare opportunity slip away? Our vision is really clear. We support demolishing the former school building, preserving the property itself for public use, and the building has reached the end of its useful life, but the land is an incredible community asset. By removing a deteriorating structure, we can transform this site into something that serves residents for generations. A place for parks, recreation, and community gathering instead of another missed opportunity. Ward 2 already has one of the lowest amounts of parks and green space in Lakewood. That isn't just a statistic, it affects daily life. It affects where children play after school, where seniors walk, where families gather on weekends, and where neighbors build relationships that make communities stronger. I also believe our neighborhood needs something positive. Too often, Ward 2 is defined by its challenges. We know the issues. We live with them every single day, but our community deserves to be known for something more than its struggles. This is an opportunity to invest in hope instead of simply responding to problems, to create a place where families gather, children play, neighbors connect, and people feel proud of where they live. The best way to strengthen a neighborhood isn't only by addressing what's wrong, it's by creating something that's undeniably right. Parks, open space, and community amenities send a powerful message that every neighborhood matters, and every neighbor matters, and every resident is worth investing in. It's also important to recognize that Ward 2 is one of Lakewood's more economically diverse communities. Not every family has access to private recreation, large backyards, or the ability to travel across the city to enjoy quality parks and amenities. Green public space matters even more here because it provides opportunities that everyone can enjoy, regardless of income. Every neighborhood deserves this. I'm running out of time. So thank you very much, you guys. Thanks for the opportunity to speak in front of you all.
Thank you. Kevin Roby. Then Jay Livesey.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Kevin Roby, and I live at 910 Kendall Street. And as a Two Creeks homeowner whose property abuts Mulholland Elementary, I respectfully and strongly encourage you to secure this property as a community asset and long-term infrastructure for current and future Lakewood residents. As one of the lower income areas in Lakewood and in a ward that has the lowest number of parks and green spaces, it is vital that we protect what is already used as a cherished community hub. And as more and more housing is being developed in a neighborhood that lacks sidewalks, from the new apartments at 8th and Wadsworth to current developments at 8th and Sheridan, this neighborhood needs to maintain a safe and vital area for the neighbors, the children, and the dogs who reside there, a space to congregate, to play, to exercise, and to form the bonds of a strong community. Over the past 3 years, I've watched from my kitchen window the dividing line between park and school property blur into a singular green space beloved by my neighbors. From the pickup soccer games to a girls' 10 and under softball team who seems to get better every practice, to the countless dogs and children who run and play in the fields and on the playgrounds, this property has become the core of our neighborhood and an asset that needs to be prioritized for its future. Over the past few months, our neighborhood has spoken about what we, the dedicated community members and residents of Two Creeks, want. Through community engagement, surveys, public comment, and the presence of so many of our neighbors here tonight, we have made it clear that we as a community want to secure this property as a green space for our residents, for future generations to come. With your support and prioritization of funding, we can make this opportunity a reality. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to improve the core of our community by securing a rare and unique property and prioritizing much-needed green space for everyone who lives not only in Two Creeks, not only in Ward 2, but in all of the surrounding neighborhoods. Thank you for your support and consideration and for helping us build the future of our community.
Thank you. Jay Livesey and then Lindsay Gross.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jay Livesey. I live in Ward 2 as well. The Mole Home site is in the heart of Ward 2 as once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A property this large in an established neighborhood is extremely rare. The city should not let it pass us by. Ward 2 already has one of the lowest amounts of parks and green space in all of Lakewood. The Mole Home property is critical for meeting both our current and future community needs. As one of the city's lower income areas, Ward 2 deserves far better access to parks, open space, and quality of life amenities. This site can help deliver that. And when funding becomes available, Mole Home should be seriously considered for a new recreation center, as our current facility is not well suited for long-term renovation. Let's act now and secure the Mole Home site for public use. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Gross, then Leah Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Lindsay Gross, and I've lived in Ward 2 for 9 years at 820 Teller Street. This is my first City Council meeting, and I'm missing dinner and bedtime snuggles because this is so important. And I urge you to move forward with the purchase of the Mulholm Elementary property. As a parent of young children, I think about what our neighborhood could look like not just today, but 10, 20, and 30 years from now. Ward 2 continues to welcome new families and a significant share of Lakewood's housing growth, yet it remains one of the most underserved areas when it comes to parks and open space. Once this property is sold, we will likely never have the opportunity to create a community asset of this size within walking distance of our home. While preserving green space is incredibly important, I also hope the city thinks creatively about what this site could become. The property has the potential to serve as a destination for families, a place with parks, playgrounds, walking paths, and possibly athletic fields, and an indoor recreation or sports facility. Youth sports organizations across our region struggle to find enough practice fields and gym space, and facilities like these benefit not only local families, but also generate economic activity by bringing visitors who support nearby restaurants and businesses. Most importantly, this is an investment in our community's future, and our children deserve places where they can play, learn, compete, and build friendships close to home. Families deserve gathering spaces that strengthen neighborhoods and improve the quality of life. Opportunities like these are incredibly rare, and we can always build more housing, but we cannot recreate open land once it's been developed. This decision will shape Ward 2 for generations. I respectfully ask you to move this conversation forward, to do everything possible to preserve the Mulholland property and our permanent community assets for the resident of Lakewood. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Leah Thompson, then Marley Goodrin.
Hi there. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Leah Thompson. I live at 850 Teller Street. These are all my neighbors. I'm also a homeowner in Ward 1 as well, so at 1165 Everett Court. I live in the neighborhood surrounding the former Mulholland Elementary School with my husband and my 2 children. And for the last 20 years, my career has revolved around answering one question: what is the highest and best use of this land? As a landman, I work on projects involving federal lands managed by the Bureau of Land Management, where balancing competing land uses is part of my everyday work. The Bureau of Land Management has a principle called multiple use and sustained yield. And that principle has stayed with me through my entire career. And at its core, that principle recognizes that good land management isn't about maximizing a single use. It's about balancing competing needs to best serve both present and future generations. While that mandate applies to our nation's public lands, I believe this philosophy is equally relevant in our local community lands. And tonight, that question isn't about federal lands in Wyoming where I work. It's about 17 acres right here in my backyard. The highest and best use of the Mulholland property, I believe, to me, is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A property of this size in the heart of an established neighborhood becomes available perhaps once in a generation. Once it's developed, the opportunity to create meaningful public open space is gone forever. Ward 2 has one of the lowest amounts of park and green space in Lakewood, as you've heard from everyone else before me, and our neighborhood has currently no meaningful green space that is walkable from my home. Ward 2 also is home to many working families. Access to quality parks and open space should not depend on where someone lives or what they can afford. Investing in green space here is an investment in our health, our community, and our children. Looking to the future, preserving this property also preserves possibilities. If funding would become available one day, this site could be considered for a new recreation center that better serves Ward 2 residents. The current existing recreation center that serves Ward 2, I feel, is not ideally located, and it presents challenges for long-term renovation and expansion. In my profession, the best land use decisions aren't always the ones that generate the greatest short-term return. They're the ones that create the greatest long-term benefit for a multitude of parties. I believe that preserving the Mulholland property is one of those decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Marley Gorin.
Hi, my name is Marley Gorin. As of a week ago, I live in Wheat Ridge, but previously I was a resident in Ward 5. Good afternoon. I'm here to advocate for your serious consideration in helping to expand a community space that holds a lot of value for myself and many others in Lakewood, the Lakewood Cultural Center. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Jefferson County resident. I'm a therapist. I'm a dancer. In all aspects of my life, I see the value of community and connection in providing myself and all those around me with a sense of belonging and purpose. I see the need for connection in the children I serve as a therapist. I see the positive impact that this connection has on me when the world feels heavy, and I see the spark it ignites in my fellow dancers each and every class. It is likely no surprise to anyone in this room that in a time where technology rules our lives and the divisiveness in our country is more apparent than ever, the majority of Americans are feeling lonely. A recent 2025 study published by the APA finds that emotional disconnection has become a defining feature for many Americans today. More than 6 in 10 U.S. adults report feeling this way, while half or more adults said they felt isolated or left out. Arthur C. Evans of the APA states, research tells us that a sense of isolation and social fragmentation can have real consequences for our ability to manage stress and stay healthy. So what is there to do about this problem? As a therapist, I strongly believe that the opposite of disconnect is community. I can't possibly express in words what a privilege it is to have the opportunity to engage with and connect my dance community at the Cultural Center. For the past several years, I have grown into myself by spending hours each week dancing with my friends at the Lakewood Cultural Center. And dance just isn't just a niche hobby either. It has always been a cross-cultural practice that humans innately seem to be drawn to from a very early age. Personally, my dance debut was in footy pajamas at age 3 while Barney played on my television. I'm sure many of you can recall early childhood experiences shaped by movement as well. To dance is to be human. The great news is that more people are discovering the LCC programs. More classes are being created to accommodate the community interest in dance. Class sizes are getting larger. While it is encouraging to see so many more in my city build connection and have fun together, it also presents a conundrum. How do we keep meeting the needs of our community when there's not enough space? The 2 studios are currently being utilized almost every hour of each day, and many classes now feel very cramped, with 12 to 16 dancers doing their best to avoid time stepping into a neighbor. So here's what the LCC dancers are asking you to consider. Helping us create additional space within the Cultural Center to further meet community needs. There's an unfinished space in the basement of the LCC, which was originally intended to be a 3rd studio but never completed. Finishing this space would mean that the benefits of this dance program could spread further and that many more can be gifted with the sense of belonging that community dance classes provide. Please consider investing in the wellness of our Lakewood citizens. In doing so, we can combat the epidemic of loneliness together and turn divisiveness into connection. Thank you.
Thank you. And closing us out, we have Joan Fessenden.
Good evening. I am Joan Fessenden, and I have lived in Ward 1 for about 30 years. I am also here to just ask for your support in expanding the Lakewood Cultural Center's studio space. A little bit about me, I've been dancing since I was little, and till I was about 20, then went and did other things. And then when I saw that Lakewood had this program, I thought, hey, let's give this a try. And I have watched this program over about the last 8 years when I joined in, grow from something good into something magnificent. I have danced in multiple states, in multiple arenas, and this is a gift that we have. The staff, the support staff, the instructors are amazing. They're supportive, they build community, they're talented, they're well-trained, and they have invested themselves in us as a community. I have seen this program grow and grow and grow, and now we're scrunched. I have personally run into other students. I've run into the walls because I want to dance full out. And as adult dancers, we take up a lot of space. There is presently 2 studios, and they're very small. They're not ideal, and the space that is in the basement, that at one point my understanding was when the building was built, was going to be a studio space. It just never developed into that. It's a magnificent space. It's large. It's got high ceilings. It would be a facility that could be used as an additional studio space, but it could also be used as a rehearsal space. It could be used for small performances. It could be used as an additional income drawer that we could rent out when other dance companies need some additional space, or a small group, a small dance company, or a small music company wants a performance space. This would be ideal for that. It is my understanding that the HCA is also in support of looking into this. Again, the space is already there. It simply needs a little bit of refreshment. Again, this program serves everybody from the littles all the way to the people my age. We've had pregnant dancers, we've had disabled dancers, we've had dancers who have gone on to do other wonderful things, and we have people who just simply want to be a part of this marvelous community. So I just ask for your support in this endeavor, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right, that closes out our initial portion of general public comment, and that leads us into our consent agenda. Are there any items that council wishes to remove from this evening's consent agenda? All right, seeing none, will the clerk please read this evening's consent agenda into the record?
The consent agenda is comprised of the following items. R 2026-50, approving a contract for city attorney services with Allison McKinney Brown and entering into a said contract for the position of city attorney on behalf of the city of Lakewood. R 2026-50, approving the 2026 appointment and reappointment nominations to the board of directors for the Alameda Corridor Business Improvement District. Ordinances on first reading, O 2026-21, amending chapter 2.52 of the Lakewood Municipal Code pertaining to initiative and referendum procedures. O 2026-22, authorizing the purchase of real property located at 10160 West 12th Avenue, Lakewood, Colorado, for municipal open space and park purposes, including acceptance of a deed therefore. O 2026-23, authorizing execution of a permanent utility easement across city property at 2911 and 2951 South Wadsworth Boulevard to Public Service Company of Colorado for an underground electrical line and related facilities. Item 6, approving minutes of the city council meetings, special meeting minutes from June 8th, 2026, regular meeting minutes, June 8th, 2026.
Thank you. And I have a sign-up sheet up here to speak on the consent agenda. As you can see, it is empty. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this evening's consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. May I please have a motion?
Mayor Strom, I move for the approval of the City Council minutes, order all ordinances introduced on first reading to be published in the Denver Post, with public hearings set for the date included in the ordinance, and for adoption of resolutions, all of which are included in the consent agenda items introduced into the record by the city clerk.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any council discussion? All right, seeing no hands up, please go ahead and cast your vote. That passes 11 yeses and 0 noes. Will the clerk please read item 8A into the record?
Item 8A, second reading and public hearing on ordinance O 2026-20, authorizing conveyance of real property owned by the city of Lakewood, excuse me, and located at 685 Denver West Colorado Mills Boulevard, formerly known as Indiana Street, Golden, Colorado, 80401, to the Lena Gulch Metropolitan District.
Thank you. And I will go ahead and open the public hearing on this agenda item. Again, I have no one signed up here to speak on public comment for this item. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and close the hearing. Now, may I please have a motion?
Mayor, I move for the adoption of ordinance O-2026-20 on second and final reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any council questions while we're waiting to see if council hands go up? I'll take an opportunity. This issue, as well as I think 3 of them that were listed on the consent agenda, has an actual staff presentation on lakewoodspeaks.org. So if you wanted to go in and learn about any additional information, there is actually a PowerPoint and video presentation that goes along with that. We won't be having a presentation this evening. I have no council hands up, so what that tells me we are ready to go vote. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Please go ahead and cast your votes. That passes 11 yeses and 0 noes. Thank you, everybody. All right, that brings us to our second portion of general public comment for the evening. Okay, so with that, we have a number of folks that are signed up to speak. I also have a pooled time, which is a 10-minute time, or a 10-minute speaking time for people come together to combine their speaking time to give to one speaker, and then we get to 10 minutes. So we'll go through all of those. What I did not say at our initial public comment point earlier this evening is that through this public comment, would ask that all comments be directed here to the City Council. That anyone in attendance online or here in person, please respect the decorum of council chambers and practice civility. We are all neighbors. We may live a little bit far away from each other, but we would like to treat each other that way. I think everyone would like to be treated that way. So tonight I'm asking for civility in this evening's conversation. And so that every speaker may be heard, I ask that everyone here in chambers do refrain from applause or audible support or discord for a speaker. For any of you that may not feel comfortable getting up in front of everyone, and I know it is a little intimidating to be in front of all of us that are up here, LakewoodSpeaks.org is available for you if you are here in the room and would prefer to leave a comment online instead of come up in front of the crowd. If you have any handouts for your speaking this evening, you may leave them with our assistant city clerk, and those will be provided to the City Council after this evening's meeting. Public comment is designed as a listen-only session. So the council, this is not a back and forth exchange. If anyone has questions, we will make every effort between us and staff to get responses to you, but that is not a dialogue that we will be having back and forth this evening. If anyone would like to have a dialogue with counselors, myself, or staff, we certainly invite you to reach out to us via email or phone, and we'll get something set up so that we can have that dialogue. But for this evening, we are here ears only. And with that, we'll go ahead and kick off with our pooled time, and I have our speaker, Karen Gourday, and I need to confirm some others in the audience. We've got Karen Miller. Okay, thank you. Lenore Herskovitz is, Lenore, okay, thank you. Ludmilla, thank you. And then John, okay, gotcha, okay, all right. So 10-minute clock started. Yep, we're ready to go.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Karen Gourday, and I live in Ward 5. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of the Lakewood Citizens Alliance. Over the past year, we have had the opportunity to speak with hundreds of Lakewood residents from every part of our community and from every political perspective. While people disagreed on many aspects of the zoning code, there was one concern we heard repeatedly. Even though the final days of the referendum process, residents did not know this was happening and wanted a process that was more transparent, provided earlier notice, and gave them a meaningful opportunity to participate before decisions of this magnitude were made. The charter amendment Councilor Nystrom is bringing forward tonight is not about relitigating last year's zoning debate. It's about ensuring that future city councils, regardless of who is serving, follow a process that gives residents adequate notice, meaningful opportunities to participate, and confidence that their voices matter. The amendment establishes common sense expectations. If legislative rezoning rezones a significant portion of our city, residents deserve advance notice with clear, plain language information. They deserve multiple opportunities to learn about the proposal and ask questions before decisions are made. And for changes of this magnitude, requiring a broader consensus of the City Council through 2/3 vote help ensure that sweeping changes reflect broad community support rather than a simple majority. While some in the community have suggested that a supermajority requirement is undemocratic, I would simply note that all 4 zoning ordinances last year were themselves adopted by a supermajority of this council. But do you know what's undemocratic? Vacancy appointments. And we'll hear about those in the next few weeks when you discuss your charter amendments on the 27th. We're also skeptical that if the charter amendment passes, future vacancy appointments will be made fairly, because right now it is rare for boards and commissions to include members who think differently than this city council. However, I want to focus on the Planning Commission for a few minutes. On June 15th, this body held a study session that identified 8 zoning priorities. At the conclusion of that meeting, those priorities were assigned to staff to define the scope of work and return to council for a study session this fall. After that meeting, I spoke with numerous community leaders, and honestly, it was the first meeting in a long time that they were not upset. When the Lakewood Citizens Alliance sent out a synopsis of that meeting, we essentially told everyone we were going to trust you, but we were going to verify and continue to watch. Because the leadership team understands that trust is not rebuilt overnight. However, the Planning Commission met last week and somehow inserted themselves into that 8 priority discussion. And they indicated they watched the same study session. Yet some of the things we heard were 2 of the 8 priorities were asinine and don't deserve to be listened to. They, the Planning Commission, are free to make their own priorities and recommendations. There's no reason to protect parks. We have plenty of those. No reason for tree protections. The outrage over Belmar Park was false outrage. Everyone should have to get rid of their lawns. Everyone should be forced to subdivide their property when they sell. We should have an opt-out process, not an opt-in process. Ward 2 specifically, because of low voter turnout, has the most opportunity for housing growth. And again, an opt-out process was brought up because that will be easiest for unengaged voters. Neighborhoods shouldn't have a voice because that's why we have a city council. And the newest member said if council doesn't like their responses, then council can fire them all. Did they even watch the same study session, or have they gone completely rogue? Because it certainly seems they're heading down the same path that led us to a special election. And that is exactly why the people are asking for a charter amendment. None of the provisions in the amendment prevent growth. They do not prevent individual property owners from seeking rezonings for their own property, nor does this dictate what future policy decisions this council or future councils must make. The intent of this amendment is not to prevent neighborhoods from pursuing changes they support. Its purpose is to ensure when large-scale legislative rezonings are considered, everyone affected has notice, an opportunity to participate, and confidence in the process. In fact, this is one of the most moderate approaches available. This amendment does not prohibit large-scale legislative rezonings. It does not require every zoning decision to go before the voters, nor does it limit individual property rights. It simply establishes reasonable expectations for notice, public engagement, and broader consensus before sweeping changes are adopted. We have also heard the concern that this amendment will hurt businesses or prevent redevelopment along transit corridors such as West Colfax. That is simply not what this amendment does. Residents living along those corridors deserve the same notice and opportunity to participate as everyone else. Let's take the Navigation Center on West Colfax, which actually may be a bad example because it's not large-scale legislative rezoning, but the same concept applies. Regardless of where people stood on the Navigation Center itself, one of the biggest concerns we heard was the lack of notice and transparency surrounding the process. Many residents felt blindsided, not because they opposed the project itself, but because they had not been adequately informed or given a meaningful opportunity to participate. This amendment addresses that concern by ensuring earlier notice and meaningful public engagement before large-scale land use decisions are made. As for West Colfax itself, it has been an urban renewal area since 2005, and if redevelopment has not occurred at the pace the city envisioned, this charter amendment is not the reason. The tax increment financing district expires in 2030, and if the building permits are taking nearly 2 years to obtain, perhaps the city's attention would be better spent improving those processes than opposing an amendment that simply requires better notice, better engagement, and better governance. That is what this charter amendment does. There's one other point I want to make, and that's throughout the referendum process, we heard repeatedly that transparency and public engagement were not the only concern. Residents also told us they wanted an existing expectation for their single-family neighborhoods respected unless and until there was a transparent process. Meaningful amendment also includes protections for existing residential zoning while continuing to preserve individual property rights. Last week, Councilor Nystrom reached out with a drafting question regarding one sentence. She suggested clarifying language. The LCA leadership team met to discuss it, and we agreed that clarification, limiting the provisioning to zoning-related actions, is reasonable. We also recognize that this council may consider additional amendments this evening. That's part of the legislative process. Our hope is that any amendments strengthen transparency and public participation rather than weaken the very protections this charter amendment is intended to provide. We simply ask that its core purpose remain intact, meaningful notice, meaningful public engagement, meaningful consensus before large-scale legislative zoning changes occur. Those are the protections Lakewood's residents deserve. If this charter amendment is fundamentally changed or it doesn't move forward to the November ballot, the LCA will be unable to support the amended version and will instead consider pursuing a citizens initiative charter amendment for the ballot next year. We've heard the concern that another citizens initiative will continue to divide the city. We understand that concern. However, residents are not pursuing charter amendments because they enjoy conflict. They're pursuing them because they do not feel heard, and they do not believe their concerns have been adequately addressed. Lasting unity doesn't come from asking people to stop participating in the process. It comes from restoring confidence that their voices matter. Whether someone supported the zoning code changes or opposed them, I believe we can all agree that residents deserve to be informed, to be heard, and to have confidence that major decisions affecting their neighborhoods are made deliberately and transparently. This amendment places those principles into our city charter so they can continue long after any of us are no longer involved and ensure there is transparency before transformation. We have also heard since April that turnout in the special election was low, that the silent majority did not show up, and that if this had been a regular election, the Yes campaign would have lost. Well, here's the opportunity to find out. Placing this amendment on the ballot during a gubernatorial election, when turnout will be substantially higher, will not cost the city any additional money. Let the voters decide. What do you have to lose? And finally, during the June 15th study session, we heard that both communication and trust need to be improved. This amendment improves the communication piece. The easiest way to rebuild trust is to ensure that your words and your actions consistently align. Thank you.
That was pretty skilled. 7 seconds left. Thank you. Okay, next we have Carol Sandsteed, then Regina Hopkins, and then Steve Taylor.
Good evening. Hello to all. I'm Carol Sandstead. I live at 451 Balsam, Ward 1, and I've been a Lakewood resident for over 40 years, loving it and very happy to be here. Very simply, I'm here to urge you to put the Lakewood Citizens Alliance amendment on the charter to put it to the election for the general the general people to vote on it. This is an important decision that needs to be made by the residents. We don't want to make up all the decisions, but this decision is very important to everyone, and I really feel that this needs to be put on the ballot. I agree with what Karen said about let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. I think it'd be an interesting thing to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Regina Hopkins, Ward 5. As I read the comments on lakewoodspeaks.org, I was disgusted and disappointed that so many people still think that housing density will automatically equals affordability through some trickle-down quick effect that's been completely disproven, like the mythological unicorn that it is. People say, I believe housing affordability for all. That's a nice sentiment, but requiring lot splitting across Lakewood isn't going to create the affordability you think it will. Just look at Denver. They've added tens of thousands of homes over the last decade. Has any of that solved affordability? No. That myth has already been busted. It's time to stop repeating it. Thousands of voters delivered a nearly 2-to-1 victory in the last special election. Are you really going to ignore those thousands of residents who have been asking for one simple thing? To be informed whenever sweeping zoning changes are proposed? Put Paula's proposal on the ballot this November. It costs us nothing, saves taxpayers roughly $350,000 on another special election and citizens from having to spend months gathering signatures just to do the job you all have the power to do tonight. If you're serious about rebuilding transparency and trust, this is where it starts. Put it on the ballot. My fear is that you'll choose the same political games instead, forcing citizens to fight you yet again, and if that's your choice, we'll do what we've done before. We'll organize, we'll grow stronger, and we'll earn even more public support every single time. For the record, I believe every member of that current planning commission should be replaced, especially Jenny O'Neill and Topher Williams. Commissioners who advocate for policies like mandatory lot splitting have shown a stunning disregard for the voices of Lakewood residents. Jenny O'Neill calling the Save Belmar Park movement false outrage is insulting to every resident who stood up to protect the environment in our community. Anytime there is a community gathering, people are still talking about what happened at Belmar Park. Jenny, don't rewrite history and don't gaslight the residents who lived through it. We know what we saw: trees recklessly cut, wildlife killed, and a community devastated and heartbroken. Jenny, if that's how you view one of the largest grassroots movements and darkest moments Lakewood has ever seen, then you have no business serving on the Planning Commission. Step down. Or City Council, do your job and remove her from the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Steve Taylor, then Joy Anderson, and then Celia Greenman.
Good evening. My name is Steve Taylor. This is my second City Council meeting that I've attended in I don't know how many years. It's been a while. But the reason I was here today, or this evening, is I live at 9004 West Dartmouth Place. And between Dartmouth and, between Estes and Garland Way, we used to have speed bumps. And there was a asphalt project that took place this summer. They took the speed bumps out. My concern is if they're going to be put back in there. They did a study for speeding on that street years ago, and they put them in there. So my question is, if they're going to be put back in there, I'd like to know. There's no speed signs on the actual street going westbound between Estes and Garland Way. And there's definitely a lot of speeding there since the speed bumps have come out of the street. On top of that, my other concern, I'm interested in, there's a sidewalk between my front yard, and we've got a sidewalk, and the city did some concrete work on the sidewalk this year. They did some concrete work on the curbs, and then they did the asphalt. My other concern is I'm curious of who actually owns and who's responsible for that rock bed between the curb and the sidewalk. It doesn't look very good, and I just want to know who's responsible for it. Is it my HOA? Is it my community? It needs some work and some love, and I would just want to know who is responsible for it. During this project that they had going on over this past summer, there was a vehicle that actually came into our driveway, into our parking lot, did a little bit of damage, and I went to the city website, filled out some information, heard back from the city, heard from a couple contractors, and this was in May of this year, and the tire marks from the oil from the asphalt was never cleaned up, and it's still there today. I would expect that if someone was going to do damage to my property, that they would clean it up, and unfortunately, it wasn't done. And I'd spoke to a gentleman from the city, and it still hasn't been resolved. So on top of that, they put in fiber, which I really appreciate you putting in fiber in our neighborhood. But there are the flags going up and down the street on multiple blocks in my neighborhood, and the contractors never picked them up after they did the fiber, and it's unsightly. So we're trying to increase the curbside appeal in our community, in the townhome complex that I live in, and unfortunately, the city is not helping out with that. So I appreciate your time, and my time is up. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope to hear from you.
Joy Anderson?
Okay. Good evening, counselors. I have two main topics to chat about this evening. The first being that I do wish you would support the Lakewood City Alliance Charter Amendment and send it to a November election. I don't find anything objectionable to providing more notice about city plans, more neighborhood input, and more opportunity to participate in major city decisions that affect the entire city and apply across all neighborhoods. Don't really think there's anything objectionable about that, no matter what your priorities are. Secondly, one of the main takeaways from the referendum and special election was that citizens need to be engaged and involved sooner in decisions that they're concerned about and they care about. My concern is in relation to the priority sent by the council to the city to explore opting in multi-residential units in any area that approves it. After listening to the Planning Commission meeting, it was suggested that it's more of an opt-out than an opt-in. The concerns I will present with that, because I know you guys aren't really talking about it immediately, but I'm getting ahead of the ball this time instead of behind it, is this seems like a get around to the blanket rezoning that was soundly rejected in April. It raises concerns of a lack of awareness of what exactly the public was opposed to that led us to a special election in the first place. The voters already chose to opt out. The second thing is, who gets to decide? These are some questions I have. You don't have to answer them, but you can ponder them. Who gets to decide who opts out or who opts in? Who gets to decide which neighborhood or homeowner gets the 3-story triplex next to them? Does a single-family neighborhood have a voice if many of the homes are investor-owned? Do minimal lot sizes or street frontages no longer matter? Do you really think this is going to meaningfully provide affordable homes for the missing middle? If you can't support that metric, what is the purpose of doing this? There doesn't seem to be much data on this proposal, and I would say, do you really want Lakewood, once again, to be an experiment that you don't know how well it will work, but has strong potential to divide neighbors, neighborhoods, and the city? I think you need to really take that to heart and see if it's the juice is worth the squeeze. A few things, I'm going to try to be somewhat positive about things and do things that I think I would like to see you guys do, and I think you already are trying to do many of these things. But I would like to see the council prioritize the adaptive reuse of existing buildings and properties in blighted corridors. Many of us live right off of Colfax, and we all know what that looks like. I also think that we need to prioritize economic development along these corridors and all of Lakewood, which I know that is the most difficult thing to do because I've lived off Colfax for 30 years and it's gotten worse every year, not better, even though we've tried to put money into it. We've tried to get the Arts District up and rolling, but economically, there's nowhere for anybody to have a reason to come to those areas very much. So, and part of that also is, it seems to me like instead of just doing a housing first approach, it would be nice to have an economic development approach. Otherwise, all that you really wind up doing unintentionally is creating commuters away from our community to go to work and to go to play, instead of to our community, and inadvertently also increase urban sprawl. I commuted my entire career because I wanted to live where I lived, but my job was far away. So I would like to see those be the priorities rather than really dividing the entire neighborhoods and communities by going right after this opt-in and opt-out. We're not against development. We would just like to see some involvement from the neighborhoods to do this. And I think we would love to be able to sit down and go through and say, hey, these are our ideas and these are the places we've identified that need to be prioritized. All right?
Thank you.
Did I make it? Oh,
Your time's expired. Thank you. Celia Greenman. And then Lori Weber.
Good evening. I'm Celia Greenman, long-term resident of Ward 2. I'm here to support the placing the amendment on the November ballot. This amendment is not anti-development. It provides more oversight, and it allows residents to evaluate what they really want for their neighborhoods and what kind of development they want in their neighborhoods. I do not see a downside in placing this on the ballot. If it goes on the ballot, then voters will think, oh, well, maybe City Council is listening to me, and there's actually no cost to the city of putting it on the November ballot. But if it does not go on the ballot at that time, then it's going to be, oh, well, they never really listened to us, business as usual, and you open yourselves up to future initiatives. So myself, I don't want to be going door to door the rest of my life, and I hope that that this amendment does get on the November ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Weber. And then William Switzer.
Hi, good evening. I'm Lori Weber and I'm in Ward 4. And I wanted to say that I've lived in Lakewood for 45 years and my family and I call this wonderful city our home. And I've noticed here that our citizens who have been paying attention can see that not all of the people or the citizens in Lakewood know or are really well informed about what is going on and when major issues come up and when they're going to be voted on by the council. Everybody in my neighborhood is really busy. They're running, they're raising family, they got kids, they don't have time to do it. So we need to try and figure out a way to reach the public in a better way. I don't know what that is. Maybe we reinitiate the Lakewood Sentinel and we've got the issues on the front cover. I don't know. But I do believe that the Lakewood City Alliance is trying to get that charter amendment passed so that the people can have a better voice and, about things that are going on. I challenge you guys to not stand in the way and to allow this measure to be put on the ballot. We are all tax-paying citizens. And you, as our representatives, need to allow us to give our input to help shape the city that we call home. We should not have to sign petitions and run around and have special elections to express our voice, or have our voices heard and then have them changed through a backdoor process. A backdoor process is not a proper way to handle things. I'd like to challenge each and every one of you to pick up the U.S. Constitution, if you haven't heard it in the past couple weeks on TV, and read it word for word, and read it once or twice, and think about it. And I'd also like to challenge you, I don't know how many of you have ever read the Federalist Papers. It's a lot of papers, but oh my God, learn what our country is about and how our founding fathers shaped the way that our government should be run. And thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. William Switzer, and then Jerry Coffey is our final speaker.
My name is William Schweitzer, and I live in Ward 2. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council, and fellow neighbors. I am here tonight because the people of Lakewood are tired of being treated like spectators in our own community. We are witnessing the classic symptoms of a top-down, developer-first government that has forgotten who it serves. For too long, this council has operated under the delusion that you know better than the people who actually live here. You draft massive, transformative zoning changes behind closed doors only to present them to us as a finished product, expecting us to simply rubber stamp it. This isn't about zoning, it's about power and control. It's about the fact that a small group of officials and well-connected interests seem to believe that they have the right to fundamentally rewrite the rules of our neighborhood without our consent. You talk about density and modernization, but what you're really delivering is a forced transformation across our entire city of Lakewood, instead of focusing on the transit and high-density areas in our district. When the citizens stood up and gathered thousands of signatures to force a vote, the response wasn't humility. It was defensive, expensive, and dismissive. You pushed this to a special election because you were more comfortable with playing politics than you are with honest face-to-face accountability to your own neighbors. My demand tonight is simple. Stop the top-down agendas. We want a full, unfiltered transparency regarding every backroom deal, every influence peddled, and every dollar spent to force this agenda onto our city. We are here to reclaim our voice and hold this body accountable. It is time you started acting as public servants again. We want a seat at the table, and we want our mayor, city council, and elected leadership to be transparent with us. I urge you to support putting this proposal on the fall ballot. Let this people decide on Lakewood Council, not you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Coffey.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jerry Coffey, and I live at 45 South Cody Street. I've submitted a written comment through Lakewood Speaks, so tonight I'm simply like to leave you with one thought. Reasonable people can disagree about this charter proposal, but I believe transparency, meaningful public participation, and public trust are goals we can all support. I recognize that you have an important responsibility. Your role is to exercise sound judgment in determining which proposals are appropriate for public consideration. I respect that responsibility. Regardless of how this proposal came before you, I hope it will ultimately be judged on its merits rather than assumptions that the individuals or organizations that support or oppose it. This proposal raises a legitimate public policy question about how major citywide zoning decisions should be made in the future. It asks whether decisions capable of reshaping multiple neighborhoods should be accompanied by greater notice, broader public engagement, increased transparency, and broader agreement among the elected representatives of our community. But I believe this is exactly the kind of question that deserves an open public conversation. If this amendment goes before the voters, they will decide whether it strengthens public confidence in local government. That is our democratic process is intended to work. That's how it's intended to work. As an elected representative, you are entrusted not only with making important decisions, but also with protecting the public's confidence in the democratic process. Whatever each of you ultimately believes about this proposal, I hope you will also consider what message your decision sends about the role of the public in shaping our city's future. Referring this proposal to the ballot does not require you to endorse every provision. It simply recognizes that this is a question the people of Lakewood may reasonably be asked for themselves. Tonight, you're not deciding the amendment. You're deciding whether the people of Lakewood should have the opportunity to decide it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And that is the last speaker that I have signed up for non-agenda public comment this evening. Did we have anybody else that wanted to speak? All right, did I see a hand? Okay. Do you have a sheet? We're going to meet you up front. Oh, no. Do it. We'll meet you up front with a sign-up sheet. No, you're fine. Yeah, go ahead.
I signed up before, but I wasn't sure I wanted to speak.
Oh,
I can? Sure.
you're already on our list?
I signed off because I was afraid to get up here.
Okay.
But-
You're the name that got crossed out?
Yeah. I
Okay,
sit there.
perfect. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
My name is Portia Lala. My address is at 6470 West
Oh,
Third Place. What? I'm too short. Okay, thank you. My name is Portia Lala, 6470 West Third Place, Lakewood 80226, Ward 3. We've had this property for almost 60 years. It's horse property. It's a residential area. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have sewer systems. We're all on septic pools. We have been established in this neighborhood, especially along our block, for several years. It's a home family place. Now, the place next to my home has been sold to a corporation. They have had it surveyed and an engineer there, and they're going to be probably trying to bring a 3-story building. With that, it's changed the property lines 7 feet over on the whole property, the block. And it's just a nightmare because it's expensive for everybody in the neighbor to have to shift their property lines, which we are obligated to. But to have a corporation building in and having a lot of people living in that house. It's a 501, and they get their money for free. They're buying up the whole block, and it's just pushing everybody out of the neighborhood, which will happen in other neighborhoods. You gotta live, the people have a chance and a choice to speak up for themselves in Lakewood, and let the citizens have a choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that ends this evening's second portion of general public comment, which brings us next to our general business items, the first of which is on the charter amendment zoning that many of you just stood up here giving your testimony for. So with that, I will hand the floor over to Council Nystrom to introduce this topic and speak to your heart's content on what you might want to say about.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to reiterate a lot of what's been said already. I do believe that this proposed amendment calls out the key item that a lot of people have been asking for 10 to 15 years, which is communication and transparency. I just want to qualify this up front. I didn't write this. I brought it forward because concerned citizens approached the mayor about this and potentially including it in about the ballot measures along with the other charter amendments that we're proposing. I think it's important to have a discussion on this. I think it's important to have consideration for this and for the residents that are bringing this forward. You know, basically, I believe in listening to constituents and taking action based on their concerns. You know, unfortunately, what's already happening is this has been mischaracterized as shutting down all development in Lakewood, and all of the aspersions and character assassinations that have been going on for the last few years here, they've all started all over again. I personally want to get to a place where we can have civil discourse without attacking other people, without attacking counselors, without attacking staff members, and without attacking our fellow residents. That's the mark of a mature community. Unfortunately, we're not there. I am working with several other counselors to find a way to have better engagement, to have conversations that are important to them, and to essentially bring people together to have an adult conversation. You know, there is a better way to do this. And unfortunately, we keep ending up in the news because of this. I think it's important that we all listen to each other. I think it's important that the council listens to the residents and consider this as an option. And we still have a little bit of time to discuss it if there's concerns, but not much. I hope that we can turn the corner and do this appropriately, and I do believe that putting it on the ballot is a better way to go than to end up with another special election. And we're probably going to have several next year. Needless to say, I don't think that's the best use of anyone's time or money, especially with all the opportunities and challenges we currently have. So I'm asking that we move this forward or have a discussion about it so that we can address this concern that's been voiced for decades, or for over a decade, and get back to a place where people are working together. People understand everyone's needs, and they're trying to get there, right? It's that simple to me, and it's basically all I want to say.
Okay. While we wait for you're just putting forward the verbiage from the request for council action as is. So do you want to make a motion on this?
Sure.
Okay.
Mayor, I move that we consider this proposed amendment to the charter for the ballot measure later this year.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor LaPierre. Thank
Just
you.
looking for the button, guys.
All right. Did you want to speak too?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Look, I'm putting a second first so we can just keep the conversation going a little bit, because I do think, you know, first of all, I totally agree with the goal here, which is increased transparency by a number of our residents. Of course, they've articulated that. And I also wholeheartedly agree with Councilor Nystrom that, you know, we got to keep these conversations going, got to look for opportunities to work with the community and, you know, and meet all the different needs of the residents. So first, I just wanted to say that. That being said, I also agree that, you know, Paula didn't write this, and she's aware, just as I am, and we've talked to some folks with staff. And, you know, I think we do recognize that there probably would need to be some language changes in some of this, because that way there's, you know, not any issues. For example, I'm trying to pull one up. For example, the draft mentions, you know, large-scale rezones to be, quote, any legislative action. So there's some things in there that, you know, we would want to take a look at. So I personally don't think, you know, we should be taking it exactly how it is and, you know, submitting it to the voters, because I do think it's needs to be workshopped like anything else we work on. So I do think the council, you know, I don't have a process in mind off the top of my head. Right? This legislative request for council action was really about, excuse me, was really about Councilor Nystrom wanted to make sure the folks in the community are heard, and that, you know, this comes to the table and there's some discussion about it. I don't know the best way to move it forward, but what I've already gathered from, you know, the sort of public discourse on this, and from just some of the feedback I've heard from some folks on the council, I don't think this would pass as it is right now. You know, I don't want to speculate. Obviously, we can just have the vote on that, but that's why I just wanted to really share this desire and openness to really figure out a way to have a better discussion about this, because I'm guessing if it's just up on an up and down vote right now after my second, it's just probably going to go down, but we'll see. Anyway, sorry that was kind of long-winded and all over the place. I haven't had a whole lot of time to collect my thoughts on this and really think about how to move it forward and keep the conversation going, but just wanted to kind of contextualize a little bit of stuff there. So I'd love to hear what other folks' thoughts are.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, and then Councilor Furman.
Yes, thank you. Thanks to Councilor Nystrom for bringing this forward, and appreciate Councilor LeBeur's second on this, and wanted to appreciate the opportunity to go after that, because I do feel similar. There is a person who put forward this and a person that seconded it, all members of the Charter Committee, which was a process that we spent some time sort of dissecting things. I do appreciate the sentiment of this, and I don't disagree with this, around transparency and public engagement. Joy mentioned, do we want to be an experiment? This feels like there is an opportunity for us to spend a little bit more time in understanding this, because I don't think that as it's written now is clear, and I do think that there is some real world scenarios that it needs to be walked through. Jerry Coffey mentioned we may not have to endorse every component of this. And I think for that reason, it deserves additional conversations on this, because it feels like a really rushed process. And there appears to be a level of double standard applied here, because we've heard in the zoning process that felt really rushed and people were not informed on this. Lori mentioned that people don't know or are really informed on what's happening. And here we have the same group of community members who've been really vocal and made it very clear where we stand on the special election and the zoning. And I don't disagree with that. And if people felt like there was a defensiveness to that in response, apologies if that came from me. I accept the results of that. I don't think that it's fair, though, that there becomes this like yes or no up down vote, that we have to accept this process as is. I think that what we saw similar to the parkland, where we had members of this community go out and collect petitions on parkland, and then we made the decision, please allow us the opportunity to make some changes to that. We came forward, we updated the costs for parkland, we made some modifications to policy, and we've seen that have a positive response. We haven't started the zoning process, and I do think that some of this stuff is important, but it feels procedural to me. It doesn't feel like a charter change, and it feels really rushed for us to do this so quickly after we've already sort of spent time through the charter committee. This doesn't feel like this feels outside of that. And so I want you all to hear from me. I'm committed to ensuring that this conversation keeps going and that we have an opportunity to bring this forward in potential ordinances or resolutions, but it feels like a procedural and policy change as it relates and not a change to our city's constitution. So I did want to share that. I will be a no vote on this.
Councillor Furman, then Councillor Kay Cruz.
I know there's a number of other councilors who have additional ways that this can be addressed in different ways to engage the community, but I did want to say, Councilor Nystrom, I am grateful for the fact that you were sort of brave enough to take this as is and put this out unedited. I think it is important. I mean, my concerns are really structural to it, which is things like, when we first started looking at this, the two things I looked at are whether other communities had these elements within their charter. And then I followed that up by looking at what we have specifically in our charter. And while we do have stuff about zoning in our charter, it's only about protests. And so I think there are parts of this that could make it into the charter, and then there's parts of this that want to be in the ordinance. Now, those are the sort of structural pieces that I'm concerned with, but I think the vast majority of this is entirely workable and makes a lot of sense. I mean, the reality is there's big pieces of this that we already sort of have. If you look at the way in which protests are dealt with within the charter, the 2/3 is in there. There's various pieces in here that are all sort of workable. For me, the big piece is if you were to make changes to the charter, you're going to have to make changes to the ordinance anyway, because you would begin to create a conflict between the two. So when it comes to the question of whether or not we want to do this or will do this, I think huge pieces of this are things that we will look at doing, will likely do. We have to figure out where they belong, whether it's charter and ordinance, and so it's going to take a little bit of time. The only part of this that, frankly, the only part of it that gives me pause as far as moving forward is the second of the instigating elements, which is applies across multiple neighborhoods or zoning districts in a manner that broadly changes permitting residential uses or density. And it's not that I necessarily have a concern about that beyond the fact that it could be too broadly interpreted. So there's verbiage in here that also needs to really hone in so that we aren't getting in the way of, say, a neighborhood, for example, that decided they were going to come together and change their zoning for whatever reason. We weren't going to impact things like that. So I think it goes a little bit to Mayor Pro Tem's concerns around making sure that we take the time to deal with this appropriately. Broadly, I don't have issues with most of this. It's just a matter of making sure it goes into the right places and that we address the concerns. There's a couple of them I have around verbiage and making sure that we don't end up with something so broad that we have set up problems in the future that are going to be difficult to address since they would be in the charter. And so this it's not a minor choice to put something in the charter. That is no small thing. It would be impacting the city profoundly for a lot of years, and so we have to take our time as we look at it. But like I said, broadly, there's a lot of good work in here, and I'm not opposed to it, just opposed to exactly how this is going into the charter right now.
Councillor Kay Cruz, then Councillor I. Cruz.
Yeah, I want to start by saying that, when citizens organize, gather signatures, and bring something to the dais like this, that always deserves serious evaluation, not a quick up or down decision, but real time, really understanding what the goal ultimately is. And me personally, I think the goal here is plain, that people want the opportunity to be part of the conversation early, before decisions are shaped, as well as staying part of the conversation as plans develop. They want to have a real voice at the table, and those aren't, unreasonable asks. And those asks are all about trust. So, the April vote told me something very clearly. People did not feel that they had enough time. People did not feel that they had enough information, and they did not feel that they had a seat at the table. And like Mayor Pro Tem said, right, the election was very clear, the decision was very decisive. The answer for me is not to close, the answer for me on this is not to widen the divide. We need to work on bringing that divide and closing that divide among community. And when I was looking at this, I really was back and forth on, do I support this? Do I move forward with this on a vote? And after spending real time, I decided to look at what other cities and states are doing when it comes down to this, for communities that feel that they're not invited to the table. And what I've seen is that this is not a good path forward. You see cities and states throughout the nation who've implemented supermajority requirements or locked-in zoning baselines. And at this moment, there are a number of cases where they are reforming or they are repealing them outright. And after seeing them, used in ways that didn't serve the community, I myself just couldn't. I will be voting no on this simply based off the fact that the data out there and everything that is pointing to this type of legislation is just not the right path forward. But that doesn't mean that we set this aside. It does not mean that we don't continue moving forward and co-creating something together. I don't think that respects the work that has been done today with the Alliance. And what I'd rather do is treat this as an opportunity to build something together. Our charter already allows us to work together at the ward level to bring residents into the planning conversation. So what I'd like to do is formally direct staff with the support of council to research what other communities and cities are doing and what they're doing well on transparency, on engagement, on zoning, and then have them bring that back to us as a body. I believe that when we sit down together, we co-create together for the common good. We can find solutions that actually create real wins. Treating this as a contest where one side has to lose more than the other, that's not the kind of city we want to build. So I truly believe this is a moment for us to start closing the divide within our city and our community. So I would just formally, motion that we direct staff to do that.
So we have a motion on the table already, but what we'll do is we will come to that after the vote on this first one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Icruz, and I wrote that down, so we'll get to it.
Thank you, and I really appreciate Councillor Nystrom for bringing this forward and the work of the Lakewood Citizens Alliance on thinking about how to move forward on doing this process differently. I share the thoughts of many of my councillors that, we fully accept the results of the election and hear the concerns and are hearing from residents across the aisle that we want to do things differently to move forward land use that reflects our vision of the city. I saw policy differences in how we achieve shared values like equity, affordability, and sustainability, and to move forward towards a place where we can all get to some form of some agreement. I think all of us can agree that we will not all ever agree on anything. We need to do things differently. And so I'm glad to hear, at least in a lot of the initial public comment, that many of at least council's conversations about initial next steps on zoning feel more reflective of what people are hoping to hear. And so that's heartening for me. And in the study session in which we were talking about how we wanted to move things forward, I really emphasized that in addition to the policies that we want to work on, such as the adaptive reuse that we talked about, zoning in on commercial corridors, et cetera, that we also need to do some work on the process and thinking about how we bring everyone to the table, both folks who showed up to the special election and folks who didn't show up to the special election, because everybody matters in our community. And so for me, I think in sharing the values of transparency and community engagement, which have been real cornerstones of a lot of the work that I've done and why I ran, right? I think we arrive at another policy disagreement on whether this exact policy in this exact form as it's being presented to us tonight is the right path forward to find that level of community togetherness and path forward that we need. And so as other folks have mentioned, Constitution, the charter as our city constitution, and the constitution of our country was brought up tonight too, I don't believe is the right place for many of the operational specificities that have been put forth, because I think we can see even in our charter, which hasn't been updated in a while today, how some of those levels of specificity that might not stand the test of time can really put future community conversations in a tough place that nobody intended, right? And I think other Councilor Cruz spoke to this. And so I would be very supportive of moving many of these proposals forward in an ordinance to codify community engagement around zoning. Some of the things we did, like having 3 public hearings with public comment on some of these big things. I think there's examples of things we could do better in here, such as mailings. I know some of us asked for that and we didn't have that budgeted at the time, and maybe that's something that we could consider moving forward on. Also, how can we incorporate renters into this? The proposal talks a lot about homeowners, and I think it's important to have everybody, including the over 40% of households in our city that are renters, at the table as well. And so I think there are lots of creative possibilities, from civic assemblies to some of the proposals in here on how we can do things better as a city. And so, I would be supportive and curious to hear more about directing staff to move some process pieces forward before some of the other zoning pieces we work on. And so I will be a no on moving this forward, but supportive of a lot of the core tenets, and appreciate the work in the comment tonight.
Councilor Lowe and then Councilor Sinks.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would echo some of the things that have been said. Councilor Nystrom, I understand, I agree with what you said at the outset, that we need to move away from, personal attacks, and this issue is something that can be very acrimonious and very contentious, and that we need to get to a place where we can have respectful conversations, where we can disagree with each other without being disagreeable. And honestly, you're obviously giving a voice to a major constituency that wants this offered, and kudos to you for bringing this for that reason. I think, obviously folks wanted this offered and wanted this debated, and they deserve to have a debate on this, and they're getting it tonight. I've had an occasion since the special election to have conversations with a number of you, and I appreciate those of you who have given me grace and sat down with me, given me tours of your neighborhood in some cases, had 2-hour lunches with me to talk about this. We didn't agree on everything, but and that includes a number of prominent folks that led the Lakewood Citizens Alliance. And I'll say now what I've said several times before. I was wrong on key aspects of this. All right, there were things it was a mistake to put all the things that we tried to put in a code in one place. It was too much too quickly for this community. I recognize that, and you all used the provisions in the charter and you overturned it. And I understand, I accept the results of that election. Elections have consequences. The zoning code that we wrote is dead. That's why we're going in this different direction. Karen Gourdet indicated in her comments that tonight that the sort of the more piecemeal, incremental approach that we're trying so far doesn't seem to have provoked the same level of backlash, and hopefully it won't, and we'll continue to have conversation. For the record, I totally disagree with a couple of the things that some of my colleagues on the Planning Commission said, and I've let them know. I don't think, for instance, the opt-out is right. I think that goes too far, and that's not respectful of what we heard on April 7th. That's why we recommended opt-in. We had a listening session where we heard from a lot of you. Lenore gave me permission to quote her. She said after that listening session, quote, "You did amazingly well controlling your verbosity, occasional minor lapses." So folks, I don't know what to say. I'm trying. This will probably be another minor lapse. Now look, having said all of that, one of the folks that was up here that did a public comment invoked the Federalist Papers. And I can't resist taking the bait because I love the Federalist Papers. Oh boy, everyone go out and read the Federalist Papers. They are so great. Separation of powers, they're great. And I'm going to quote 2 of them because this does get to the heart of my concern. The constitutions matter. Charters matter. That's why it gave you all the power to run a referendum. These provisions are important, right? And to Councilor Cruz's point, charters and constitutions are not where we do policy legislation. And by the way, we want to be very, very thoughtful before we set hurdles in place that require more than a majority vote on issues of great consequence. And that's not me talking, that's Hamilton and that's Madison. Let me quote Hamilton talking about supermajority thresholds. Quote, Federalist 22, to give a minority a negative upon the majority, which is always the case where more than a majority is requisite to a decision, is in its tendency to subject the sense of the greater number to that of the lesser. Federalist 22, Hamilton. Or Madison, Federalist 58, again talking about supermajority thresholds. In all cases where justice or the general good might require new laws to be passed or active measures to be pursued, the fundamental principle of free government would be reversed. It would be no longer the majority that would rule. The power would be transferred to the minority. Were the defensive privilege limited to particular cases, an interested minority might take advantage of it to screen themselves from equitable sacrifices to the general weal, or in particular emergencies, to extort unreasonable indulgences. And I do think it's worth reading. I agree with the person that said this. We should go take a look at those papers because they're talking about ways in which if we create these supermajoritarian thresholds, we may well be making it impossible. I'm getting the vibe that there's a couple of people in the audience that don't like what I'm saying, but I am going to finish my comments. First Amendment right for both of us. So look, that is my core concern here, right? I think you can believe two things in good faith simultaneously. You can believe that what we passed was bad and should have been repealed, but you can also think that it's wrong to insert a specific supermajority threshold in the charter on a very, very specific issue. I mean, we don't require supermajorities to pass budgets. We don't require supermajorities to do a lot of things around here. I think inserting that specifically for zoning, it feels to me like it's inserting a very, very particular hurdle to make absolute sure that we don't change anything about the nature of zoning. And I think you can say that what we passed last year went too far, and also think that we need to be able as a legislative body to continue to make reforms on an issue that is of great, great consequence to many, many people that are struggling to live here in this community. And it is really true that there are deep affordability challenges that are enmeshed in the issue of zoning. So respectfully, in addition to all the other thoughtful comments that have been made, that is why I will be a no. I will also just briefly call out, Councilor Cruz already alluded to this, the text does say, quote, mail notice to property owners within the affected area. I mean, folks, that's an easy fix, but come on. I mean, we're not going to mail notice to renters? That's not fair. 40% of the city rents. Easy fix, I grant you, but I just hold that up as an example of why I don't think this is quite ready for prime time. Finally, mention was made that folks seem to like the more thoughtful, incremental approach that we're going down. Well, two of those ideas that council said that we want to tackle were residential district opt-in, so allow very specific communities to opt in with a lot of safeguards when they want to sort of, duplexes, that sort of thing. And we also talked about a single-family house size cap, right? That address that issue where right now someone can build a massive McMansion. Let's put some guardrails on that, okay? Both of those would be legislative changes that would be subject to the supermajority. So look, I'm not opposed to I'm open to discussions about process and making sure that there's transparency and making sure that people do get written notice and making sure that we have multiple public meetings with multiple opportunities for public comment. I truly am bought into those things, and we should discuss that, and I'm happy to support an effort to direct staff to give us some ideas on how we do all of that better. But respectfully and with great respect for the incredible grassroots activation that many people in this room brought in direct opposition of a thing that we pass. You were all very successful. And as someone who's been a community organizer at an earlier point in my life, I applaud you for the activism and the passion that you and many, many others you worked with brought to this issue. I do. But I will respectfully be a no on this charter amendment.
Councillor Sinks and then Councillor Black.
Thank you. Wow, we learned a lot last year. I mean, we thought we were being transparent. Oh, come on.
Let's not go back and forth. Let's not go, just keep going.
So we learned a lot as we had ward meetings, and I was surprised. What? Nobody is concerned this last summer and asking questions about the zoning. I was so surprised at that. So I'm so glad you're all involved. Let's keep that up ahead of time. Sometimes human nature, we just let things go until, oh no, now's the time to do it. And I'm so glad we're aware that, yes, we need to be involved early, and we are. So yes, I hope that that's instituted, that the citizens' voices are increased. I hope that it's instituted that we're increasing transparency, and yet I don't want it instituted in the city charter. Is that the only place we can guarantee transparency, in the city charter? I don't think so. Yeah. It's pretty common that government people are the whipping boys, you know. Oh, we were your neighbors and citizens, and then we get up here, and then, oh, you can't be trusted. You know, it's really sad that way. So civility is a really good thing to have these days, and that's not civility. So I will stop.
Counselor Black and then Counselor Ryan.
Yeah, I just have a couple things. My fellow counselors have already said a lot about this. And while I do have some issues with this, and I'll speak on those, I first just want to thank Counselor Nystrom for continuing to really advocate for the position that we have lost some trust throughout the community, and that we do want to work on taking actions and initiatives that help to rebuild trust, rebuild transparency, and help folks feel that they're more aligned with us. That's work that I hear from you every time I chat with you, and I think there's real value there, and I'm genuinely really appreciative of it. And there is a lot in here, as my other counselor said, that is really powerful and I think really good. While I do have issues with some of the language, some of it was already mentioned, mail notice to property owners. Another thing I'll bring up are reasonable opportunities for public comment. There was so much after the first zoning initiative and subsequent feedback that talked about how there weren't enough reasonable opportunities for public comment. So I don't know exactly what this language means, which means it's difficult for me to support it in its current form. But the big thing I'm going to focus on in kind of my final comments is just the folks that got up today talked a lot about city council is not listening to me. City council is not listening to me. But I noticed that of the 60-something comments that were submitted online, fully almost 50% of those wanted us not to pass this in its form. There were lots of comments on Lakewood Speaks, and I would encourage us all to read them. I found them really powerful, that said things like, we shouldn't be putting this type of language into a foundational charter. This locks current zoning into place in a way that doesn't give us any adaptability or any flexibility, and it doesn't give the city the capacity to address the urgent housing needs and changes that are a component of the world that we're living in today. So it's difficult for the folks in this room, I know, that come up and speak on the dais tonight, tended to have one perspective, but there are lots of others who are engaging in other methods, including the online comments that we can read right now, that feel very, very differently about this issue. And I think some of those pieces are worth value and worth looking at. Again, that sense of adaptability, flexibility, and the need to address the housing crisis that we're in. So that's why, for me, this in its current manner is tough. But I just want to continue to commend the folks that are pushing forward this desire for accountability, and state, as my co-counselors have, there are many components of this that are powerful, that are positive, and I hope that we can continue to dialogue on this.
Councilor Ryan.
You know, Lakewood's known for its parks and open spaces, and hopefully we'll have some discussion about that with the Mulholland Park here in a bit. And I'm hoping that maybe it's possible at some point that we can add civic partnership and cooperation to this. I think it's possible. I mean, I know many people feel very divided. They feel unheard. I will say, though, that after that special election, I think City Council as a body heard. If we heard from Karen Gourdet, who talked about that she was, I'll use impressed. I don't know that she would use the word impressed. That in our study session, it sounded like maybe we did hear you. And we came up with 8 priorities and a way to move forward. And it seems like it's the Planning Commission meeting that kind of set things on fire. I will say we're not the Planning Commission. We're your elected officials, not the Planning Commission. And we told you here's a path that we expect to go forward. One of those ways that we said we wanted to go forward was to have a continuing dialogue on how we do certain things. Everybody can, I think, get behind transparency, more community involvement, fair processes. And I think that's exactly what we were saying we wanted to do in the study session, saying, we heard you. And this is from someone who voted no on the zoning. Give us the chance to actually do what we said we were going to do. And if we don't do it, yeah, run it. Hit us over the head with it. But what I'm telling you is that from my limited discussions with some of the councilors, listening here tonight, listening to the mayor after the election, I have full expectations that we are going to deliver as we promised, and we're going to deliver the parts that make sense. I do wish, and I think Councilor Kay Cruz brought up an excellent point that I expect to support, because one of the things that I wish had happened was that after the comprehensive plan, when we had all these different citizen advisory groups out there saying, hey, here's what we would like to see, that helped craft your comprehensive plan that the city is acting under. Can we adopt some version of that? It doesn't have to be the same people. It can be people from different perspectives to help guide us and give us more input on these things. Have more community conversations. And if the city staff says there's yet an even better way, by gosh, by golly, I'm open to that. But what we heard was, hey, we were very appreciative of what City Council said, and I was very appreciative of what City Council said. So let's move forward. Let's go forward with that. As someone who voted no, charter amendment is not the way to solve this. If we want to build trust, we want to build transparency, let City Council do what we said we were going to do and bring that community involvement. Let's have a bigger dialogue. Let's not just adopt one thing sight unseen and say, let's do this. And I know I'm getting some different reactions and from folks who aren't very happy about that, and that's fine. Well,
Hey, please.
So, and as Councilor Furman said, perhaps there's some piece of what we've been talking about where it does make sense in the city charter. But let's get to work. Let's roll up the proverbial sleeves, and let's figure out how to get this done and build that cooperative community that I think all of us really wish we had.
Before we start a second round of comments from councilors, I have a few words to say myself. First of all, I want to thank the leadership of the Citizens Alliance for coming forward and working to be solutions oriented. While you're hearing up here that there's not necessarily exact agreement with what that is, I'm hopeful that you're hearing that there is an appetite for us to move some of these things forward. And they may look different. I think having more public meetings, we had when you think about the public meetings that occurred between Planning Commission and the City Council, there were a lot of public meetings last year. There was a lot of public hearings about it, but clearly that was not enough. As your mayor, what I see is a need for us to have more high quality actual opportunities for public engagement, something that allows us to roll up our sleeves. And when I say us, I mean the collective of the people that are wanting to be involved in this conversation, to roll up sleeves and really feel, as one of my counselors mentioned, that they have a seat at the table. And I do think that Councilor Cruz did an amazing job with the roundtables that he conducted through that. And I think that potentially could be a model that we discuss so that as we're bringing forward, again, it's about high quality. What we know is that getting postcards in the mail may or may not work. We're at the point that we understand that the mark was missed as far as engaging to the appropriate level for our residents. And I think that that can be accomplished not necessarily by adding postcards sent in the mail. I'm not saying that that's not a thing that we could do, but if we really are genuinely looking for a feeling of being included with the decisions that are being made, it's not something that's going to land in our mailbox. It is something that we will be sitting down together, maybe in small groups, and having conversations. So thank you very much for putting forward a solution, and thank you to Councilor Nystrom for bringing this forward this evening. I know, this topic for each and every one of us up here is not an easy one, and especially for you. It's not easy seeing public comment sometimes devolve into character attacks, and I know that some of that has been occurring with this topic. At the end of the day, I'm going to go back to the comments that I made earlier. We are all neighbors. The neighbors, it might be a mile away or might be 2 miles away that folks' houses are from each other. But at the end of the day, we all have a vested interest in making sure that our city does as good as humanly possible, not only for us today, but for our kids and for our grandkids. We have a lot riding on not just this decision, but all the decisions, and there's a lot of weight that is carried by the council on many of these. So thank you, Councilor Nystrom. Thank you to our Citizens Alliance folks for bringing this forward. I likewise am a no on the idea of putting this into the charter, but I am very enthusiastic about bringing forward a conversation that will integrate some of the other ways that we can potentially do much, much better as we're moving forward on some of these. Not only the 8 that we picked, was that last month? Yeah, I've slept since then. But on other things as well. So thank you to everybody for being here tonight. We'll go ahead. I do have one hand up right now as we're moving into a second round of comments. Councilor Nystrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add that Councilor Lowe, you made the comment about mailings that were listed in this proposed amendment. Currently in the zoning code, and I brought this up during a study session, the mailings only go to owners, and I requested that to be an amendment. So that is another thing that I would appreciate if we could move forward on that quickly, because yes, renters need to be included in this process as well as owners, and notification should be given to everyone involved.
Okay, and seeing no more hands up, why don't we go ahead and we'll vote first on Councilor Nystrom's motion, and then we'll move forward, if needed, to Councilor Ken Cruz's.
Mayor, can I make another
your hand's
comment?
back up?
I
Okay.
mean, since obviously I'm the only one that's going to vote no on this, I'd prefer to pull this and work with Councilor Cruz and others that are interested in finding the path forward as quickly as possible. Excuse me?
Oh, it would come back to council for a study session or workshop.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying it needs to be expeditious.
Okay. All right, so do we have a second ready to remove? Pull your second. Pull the motion. Councilor Nystrom?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Ken Cruz, the floor is yours.
So I motion to direct staff to research what other cities are doing well on transparency, community notice, and engaging in zoning, including reviewing ward advisory committees, and bring that back to us at a near study session.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. I heard the second first from Councilor Cruz for the minutes. Ms. Hudson? Did you have a comment?
I just want a copy of what he just
okay
made a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any conversation about this? All right, seeing none, please go ahead and cast your vote. And that passes 11 yeses and 0 nos. All right, that brings us to our second topic of our general business this evening. And I don't know who we want to hand the floor to, Councilor Black or Councilor Icruz? Okay.
You ready? Okay. Yeah, so excited to be a Ward 2 City Councilor in this moment in our request for council action on the purchase of Mulholm Elementary School. And there's so much that I could say about this property, but I really want to highlight that I think our residents and community members said it so eloquently. And for me, it was such a good reminder of what local democracy looks like at its core when you have really engaged citizens and community, and they're really united around an issue that brings neighborhoods together in this incredibly positive and transformational way. So I'm just so appreciative of the Ward 2 residents that came and spoke tonight and really mounted an incredible campaign that included emails to council and staff to let everyone know the importance of this property to them. And so in that vein, a couple of the things that I heard tonight, folks said that it was the core of our neighborhood, that this decision will shape Ward 2 for decades. They talked a lot about how Ward 2 has been historically underserved by parks and open spaces, and that this as a green space would really, really give community this incredible opportunity to gather, to bring kiddos, to bring family members, and to be connected to one another. We're so excited for the potential to acquire this property. We really believe it would provide lasting benefits for residents of all ages, create space for recreation, gathering, and connection while preserving quality of life.
Thank you, and I appreciate my co-counselor for working on this with me. You know, Mulholm, since the closure was announced back in 2022, I think before then many people in the community had sort of seen the decline of what had been a really central community space into a school that was built back in the 50s, that didn't have enough students really to serve folks well. And so I think there was a lot of grief that came with that process, and that was something I know I heard in the community before I was campaigning. When I was campaigning, that was a big question mark for people in the neighborhood, particularly folks who are right next to it. What's gonna happen with this space? We know Two Creeks is absorbing a huge amount of the development in our community without the requisite development of community amenities and park space, although we're really excited about the Two Creeks Park that just opened. So with this starting to come up on the property disposition list for Jeffco schools, we know, as has been said multiple times tonight and in many of the comments and the emails we've gotten, that this is a once in a generation opportunity for us to get this amount of space in an area in which there is not that much space open for an opportunity like this. And so really excited to be able to be a part of it. At the time of closure, we know that Mulholm was a Title I school with a high proportion of kids who qualified for free and reduced price lunch. We knew lots of students whose primary language wasn't English, and there was a majority of Latino families whose kids were there, and many of those kids now go to Lumberg Elementary across Colfax and Edgewater, some in Edgewater Elementary, and we know that, you know, crossing Colfax as a tiny kiddo is not easy, right? And so we still are continuing to grapple with some of the impacts in this community. And so we are really excited for this opportunity to kind of learn from the equity analysis in our Imagine Tomorrow Parks plan, right, to really zone in on an area that needs some love and needs some investment, and get the opportunity to get this parcel and then decide sort of what to do with it, and extending the park that you've heard of that already exists there, and then figuring out kind of what to do with the building and what to do moving forward. The building, as I said earlier, was built in the 50s. It is not in great shape anymore and doesn't have a lot of life left. And so I think that there's process to be had about what that should look like, but we have an opportunity in a narrow window to make this work now. And so that's why we're moving this forward and are asking sort of for the support of council to continue having these conversations and negotiate on this space. With otherwise we would lose this once in a generation opportunity to make a real difference in our community. Just as a point of order, so I think in the request we were asking for kind of council consensus on our interest in the property. Would you like us to move forward on the executive session, or what is the?
So if council decides to give staff the direction to begin negotiations for this property, then the first step of that is to hold an executive session. So that we would do immediately following this meeting. So what we need right now is direction to staff to initiate the negotiations.
Perfect, great, okay. So I move to direct staff to initiate the negotiations on the Mulholm Elementary property.
I second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any comments from council? Seeing no hands up. All right, never mind. Councilor Sinks.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on this. And I'm Ward 1, but a neighbor. And yes, it's certainly needed. And again, thanks to all those that have given their input and how we've heard, and we appreciate your work on that. So thank you. And just to know that more, staff will negotiate the price, and it's still undetermined, correct, what will be done with the property and the building. And so TBD, more to be determined. We're not sure which way it'll go yet, but we hope that it is at least in the city's park property, or however, and in addition to anything else that might happen. So thanks again, both councilors from Ward 2, for your work.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Please go ahead and cast your vote. That passes 11 yeses and 0 noes. So with that, it is actually only 9:15, so we do have a few minutes if we needed to do council reports. I had told council this might be a late night. We may not have the opportunity to do council reports. We have an executive session that we are going to hold after this meeting. Does anyone have anything critical that they would like to report tonight before we adjourn? Nope, okay. All right, then, seeing no further business to come before the City Council this evening, I will adjourn this meeting at 9:14 p.m. Thank you, everyone.